Namaste, beautiful souls. Welcome to the sacred journey of Call Mantra, Embrace Divine Grace. Let the celestial vibrations uplift your spirit and guide you toward inner peace, abundance, and divine blessings. Open your heart, chant with devotion, and awaken the infinite grace within you.
All right, let's get right into it. There is a ton of chatter, and honestly a lot of fear, building up around the solar eclipse that's coming on February 17th, 2026. You've probably been hearing this term Panch-Grahi, a 5-planet eclipse getting tossed around, and it's making people pretty nervous. So what's really going on?
And that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Is this big celestial meetup during a solar eclipse something we should actually be losing sleep over? Well, we're going to dig into the astrology of it all and find out the truth.
And don't worry, we've got a roadmap for this. First, we'll sort out the myths from the facts. Then, we'll see where this eclipse is even visible. After that, we'll uncover the real astrological story, figure out who should maybe be a little more mindful, and then wrap up with some practical tips. Let's go!
Okay, first things first. Let's just cut through all the noise. The goal here is to bust some of those common myths that are causing all this unnecessary panic about this particular eclipse. So the first thing you need to know is this is an annular solar eclipse, which is different from a total one. From an astrological standpoint, at the moment of the eclipse, the Sun and Rahu, that's the point in the sky where the moon's path crosses the sun's, are going to be about 10 degrees apart. Because of that distance, the moon doesn't completely cover the sun. Instead, we get that incredible ring of fire effect.
Now what about this whole Panch-Grahi or 5-planet thing? The truth is, it's not nearly as rare or spooky as it sounds. I mean, think about it. Every single solar eclipse involves the Sun, the Moon, and Rahu or Ketu. So astrologically speaking, that's 3 planets right there. On top of that, Mercury is almost always hanging out near the Sun. It's there in about 95% of solar eclipses. And Venus is right there with it pretty often too, about 70% of the time. So see? Getting 5 of them together is basically business as usual for an eclipse. In fact, to put a fine point on it, our source material says it directly. This alignment is not just not uncommon, it's quite common. So the analysis is pretty clear. There is absolutely no reason to be afraid of this particular alignment. So if the 5-planet alignment isn't the big deal, what about visibility? I mean, where in the world are people actually going to see this thing happen? And what does that mean for the rest of us?
Well, this show is mainly going to be happening in the southern hemisphere. We're talking places like the southern tip of South America, southern Africa, and Antarctica. But here's the most important part for a lot of you listening. It will not be visible in India.
And of course, that leads to the next question, right? If I can't see it, do I even need to care? According to the astrological view we're looking at, the answer is kinda yes. The sun is seen as the king of the solar system, the main source of energy. So when something major like an eclipse happens to the sun, it's thought to have at least a subtle ripple effect on everyone, no matter where you are on the globe. This brings us to a concept you might have heard of called Zodiac. It's a traditional period before an eclipse where you kind of pause formal religious activities. It's meant to be a time for quiet reflection, not really for active worship. For a solar eclipse, the Zodiac period starts 12 hours before it begins. But, and this is the critical part, this rule only applies in places where you can actually see the eclipse. So for example, no Zodiac will be observed in India for this one. And it's also worth remembering that even where it is observed, there are always practical exceptions for kids, the elderly, and anyone who's sick. Okay, now we are getting to the absolute heart of it. The analysis we're looking at says the fear around the 5-planet thing is, well, it's a distraction. The real astrological story, the thing we should actually be paying attention to, isn't the eclipse itself, it's what happens in the days after. Here's the core idea. After an eclipse happens at a very specific degree in the sky, the big astrological question is, which planet is the first one to travel across that exact same spot? If it's a benefic planet, a helpful one like Venus, the effects are thought to be pretty mild. But if it's a malefic or more challenging planet like Mars, well, that's considered a trickier transit. And this timeline is where it all comes together. On February 17th, the eclipse happens in the sign of Aquarius, specifically in a lunar mansion or nakshatra called Dhanishta, which just happens to be ruled by Mars. Just 5 days later, Mars itself moves into Aquarius. And then, sometime in the first 2 weeks of March, Mars crosses that exact degree where the eclipse happened. That sequence is what the analysis says is the real astrological event to watch. So, given this whole cosmic sequence, who is actually advised to be a bit more mindful?
because it's definitely not everyone. In fact, the source material is very clear that most people will go about their lives and not even notice a thing. So, according to this analysis, the folks who might feel the effects a little more are those with Aquarius as their zodiac sign, anyone with their moon in that Dhanashista nakshatra we just mentioned, and people who are currently running a major planetary period of Mars, what's known as a Mars dasha. It also might apply to anyone going through a generally tough planetary period. But for most of us, life will probably just feel like life.
All right, let's get to the good stuff. The practical, actionable advice. Based on everything we talked about, what are the recommended do's and don'ts to help you sail through this eclipse period nice and smoothly?
So, during the actual eclipse window, which, if you were to convert it, is roughly 3:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time, the advice is pretty simple. Just lay low. Maybe don't go bungee jumping, be extra careful on the road, and hit pause on any huge life-changing decisions. It's also suggested to try and stay awake and avoid getting into arguments during those few hours. The whole idea is just to keep things calm and low risk.
Now on the flip side, here are some really positive things you can do. Spiritual practices, like chanting mantras, are said to be even more powerful during an eclipse. There are also simple traditions like putting a basil leaf in food that's already been prepared, taking a bath after the eclipse is over, and donating food or grains to those in need. And finally, performing a simple 5-minute ritual for one's ancestors called Pitratarpan is highly recommended.
So how long should we be mindful? The guidance suggests the effects can ripple for about a month, but that period of extra caution really lasts until about March 15th or 16th, which lines up perfectly with that Mars transit over the eclipse point we talked about.
And that really brings us full circle to the main takeaway here. There's no need to fear the solar eclipse. Once you understand what's really going on, when you can separate the myths from the actual astrological analysis, and when you have simple, mindful things you can do, well, that knowledge just dissolves the fear.
So I'll just leave you with this final thought to chew on. Is an event like this a reason for us to look up at the sky with fear? Or is it just a cosmic reminder to be a little more aware, a little more careful, and a little more mindful in our actions right here on Earth? It's something to think about.
Struggling with health, financial worries, wealth, relationships, or career? Don't let these challenges hold you back. Harness the ancient power of authentic Rudraksha, planetary remedies, and Vedic astrology to restore balance and attract success. But act fast. These sacred remedies are in limited stock. Visit callmantra.com today to transform your life.
If this resonated with you, join our spiritual journey. Your support keeps us growing. We'd love to hear your thoughts. So like, comment, share with friends, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.